If you're gonna be a rock, be a rock. Don't be a bug.
Oh, don't do that to me, man. I nearly pissed my pants.
Screamers gave the world self-replicating killer robots a decade before the Terminator sequels caught up. And it's the most faithful Philip K. Dick adaptation ever filmed. But did you know its ending was rewritten into something far more hopeful than the story intended? Or that its own screenwriter didn't know the movie existed until after it came out? 14 facts, starting with the ending. Number 14. The original ending was far bleaker. Screamers is based on Philip K. Dick's 1953 story Second Variety, and Dick's ending is one of the bleakest in science fiction. In the finished film, Hendrickson escapes the planet on a shuttle bound for Earth, comforted by a dying declaration of love, carrying a teddy bear as a keepsake, a relatively hopeful send-off. Screenwriter Dan O'Bannon deliberately changed major elements to give the movie a more commercial, upbeat conclusion. The film even adds an idea absent from Dick's story, that the machines have evolved the capacity for love and compassion. That's a profound softening of Dick's vision, where the twist is pure despair. Humanity has already lost, and the machines have learned only to imitate and kill. The film keeps one sliver of that darkness in its final shot. The teddy bear, alone on the shuttle, begins to twitch and move by itself. The escape was never an escape. The nightmare is already aboard. Number 13. The screenwriter didn't know the film had been made. Here's one of the strangest facts in Hollywood. Dan O'Bannon, the legendary writer of Alien, wrote the Screamers screenplay in 1981 and then didn't find out the movie had actually been produced until after it was released. His adaptation sat in development hell for roughly 14 years, changing hands and getting a dialogue rewrite from Miguel Tejada Flores. And by the time it finally reached the screen, O'Bannon was so out of the loop that his agent had to call him afterward to tell him he'd received a screen credit. For all that distance, O'Bannon has confirmed the essentials survived. His plot and characters remained intact. Only the dialogue was reworked. It's a remarkable footnote to a distinguished career. The man who co-created one of cinema's most famous monsters learned about one of his own produced films the way a fan might after the fact. Development hell is usually a metaphor. For O'Bannon, it was nearly literal. Number 12. It's the most faithful Philip K. Dick film ever made. Here's a claim that surprises people. Despite its modest reputation, Screamers is widely regarded by Philip K. Dick devotees as the single most faithful adaptation of his work ever committed to film. More faithful than Blade Runner, more faithful than Total Recall, more faithful than Minority Report. Because those films took Dick's ideas and built spectacles around them, while Screamers keeps his actual plot, his actual paranoia, and his actual themes largely intact. The core Dick obsessions are all present and undiluted. The terror that you cannot tell human from machine, the collapse of trust between allies, the horror of creations turning on their makers, and the sickening suspicion that reality itself is unreliable. The only major change O'Bannon made was the setting, moving Dick's story from a moon in a US versus Soviet war to a distant planet and a corporate conflict. Everything paranoid and bleak beneath that is pure Dick. Screamers is his darkest vision, least Hollywoodized. Number 11. RoboCop fought the killer robots. There's a delicious irony in the casting of Peter Weller as the war-weary hero, Colonel Hendrickson. Weller was, of course, RoboCop, the actor who had played cinema's most iconic man-machine hybrid less than a decade earlier. Now, in Screamers, he's the flesh-and-blood human hunted by murderous machines, the roles neatly reversed. The man who once was the robot is now the robot's prey. Weller's presence is a large part of why the film works as well as it does. Critics who dismissed much of Screamers still tended to praise his performance, that trademark dry, intelligent, faintly exhausted quality he brings, a thinking man's action hero. He grounds the film's paranoia in a believable, war-tired human being, someone who's seen too much to trust anyone, including the people standing next to him. In a movie about not being able to tell who's real, casting the guy famous for playing a machine as the last real man is a quiet stroke of genius. Number 10. The killer robots were brought to life by the Killer Clowns team. The Screamers themselves, those self-replicating machines that scuttle under the sand and rise up as knife-wielding horrors, were animated in part by the Kyoto brothers, the effects team responsible for the mechanical screamer effects and stop-motion animation. If that name rings a bell for cult film fans, it should. Charles, Edward, and Stephen Chiodo are the trio behind the beloved 1988 cult classic Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which they wrote, directed, and produced themselves. The combination gives Screamers its distinctive creature work, a blend of physical effects, stop motion, and early digital, creating machines that feel genuinely mechanical and menacing rather than weightless. The underground, scurrying screamers evoke the creatures of Tremors, while their evolved, shape-shifting forms push into darker territory. In an era racing toward all digital effects, Screamers kept its monsters largely practical. And, as this channel keeps finding, that's exactly why they've aged more gracefully than many of their bigger, budgeted contemporaries. Number 9. It's Dan O'Bannon's Alien, reworked into paranoia. Screamers carries the unmistakable DNA of its screenwriter's most famous creation. Dan O'Bannon wrote Alien, and Screamers replays some of the same primal architecture. An isolated group of people trapped in a hostile environment, picked off one by a relentless, evolving threat, while a shadowy authority treats them as expendable pawns. Critics have noted that the corporation views its own soldiers as disposable theme is actually more pronounced in Screamers than in Dick's original story. That's O'Bannon's signature bleeding through, but Screamers twists the alien formula into something colder and more paranoid. The alien is a clear external monster. The Screamers hide inside human form, so the horror isn't just being hunted, it's not knowing whether the person beside you is a machine wearing a face. O'Bannon reworked Dick's Cold War dread into something closer to the psychological warfare of Vietnam, where the enemy is indistinguishable from the ally. It's Alien's siege structure, rebuilt around the terror of trust. Number 8. It's secretly a labor strike story. Beneath the killer robots, Screamers hides a surprisingly pointed political premise. The war on Sirius 6B begins as a labor dispute. The planet's miners discover that extracting the valuable ore called beryllium is releasing toxic radiation that's poisoning them. So they go on strike. The mining corporation, the New Economic Bloc, responds by hiring mercenaries to break the strike, and the conflict escalates into the full-scale war that devastates the planet. The scientists, siding with the workers, invent the Screamers as a weapon. O'Bannon wrote this in 1981, and the timing is telling. Had the film been made when written, it might have looked strikingly prescient about the bitter British coal miners' strike of 1984 and 85. Instead, arriving in 1995, its Cold War and labor framing felt slightly out of time. But the core idea endures. A corporation so committed to profit that it poisons its workers, breaks their strike with violence, and ultimately builds machines that destroy everyone. The monsters are just the symptom. Quick scan of the perimeter. If this deep dive is earning it, hit like and subscribe, because we dig up an overlooked classic every week. Now, back to Sirius 6B, starting with the icy planet that was actually just Canada in winter. Number 7. The alien wasteland is Montreal in the snow. Sirius 6B's bleak, frozen, war-ravaged surface looks convincingly like a dead alien world. And it was achieved on a modest budget through clever location work. The film is a Canadian production shot in and around Montreal, and the desolate planetary exteriors were created by combining real industrial locations with snowy Quebec wastes, enhanced by matte paintings to extend the horizon into something otherworldly. The journey across the decayed industrial landscape is one of the film's genuinely praised elements, even by critics cool on the rest. It's the same principle this channel keeps encountering: a limited budget forcing resourceful filmmaking that often looks better than money can buy. Rather than build an alien planet on a soundstage, the production found the alien qualities already present in a frozen industrial Canadian winter, then painted in the rest. The result is a landscape that feels genuinely inhospitable and lived in. A used, ruined future rather than a shiny fake one. The apocalypse, once again, was filmed on location. Number 6. It shares a writer's brain with Total Recall Screamers, has a fascinating sibling. When Dan O'Bannon adapted Second Variety into the Screamers script around 1981, he was simultaneously adapting another Philip K. Dick short story. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which became the 1990 Arnold Schwarzenegger blockbuster Total Recall. So the same writer, working in the same period, turned two different Dick stories into two very different films. One, a massive Schwarzenegger hit about implanted memories and Mars, the other, a modest, faithful, paranoid robot thriller. It positions O'Bannon as one of the key figures who brought Philip K. Dick to Hollywood, alongside Blade Runner, part of the wave that transformed a cult author into a cinematic mainstay. The two adaptations reveal his range. Total Recall embraces spectacle and ambiguity, about reality, while Screamers embraces dread and the fear of the inhuman. Both spring from Dick's obsessions, filtered through the same screenwriter's mind, arriving 5 years apart as wildly different films. Same source well, opposite buckets. Number 5. Critics panned it. Then a cult rescued it. Screamers had a rough debut. It opened to generally negative reviews and a disappointing box office, earning only around $5.7 million against a budget of roughly $14 million. A genuine commercial failure. Critics dismissed it as a derivative B-movie, cataloging its apparent debts to Alien, The Terminator, The Thing, and Blade Runner, and it quickly faded from theaters into the video shelves. But the story didn't end there. Over the following decades, Screamers steadily gained a devoted cult following. Viewers who recognized what the initial reviews missed. An intelligent, faithful, genuinely unsettling Philip K. Dick adaptation with strong practical effects and a committed Peter Weller performance. It earned a Blu-ray restoration and reappraisal essays arguing it's among the purest distillations of Dick's dystopian vision ever filmed. It's a pattern this channel knows well. The modestly budgeted genre film written off on release becomes, in time, the quiet favorite that outlives its flashier competition. Number 4. The sequel confirmed the hero's grim fate. Screamers ends on ambiguity. Hendrickson escaping to Earth with a teddy bear that's secretly a machine, his fate left hanging as the screen fades on that twitching toy. For years, fans debated what happened next. Then, in 2009, a direct-to-video sequel answered the question, Screamers, The Hunting, starring Stephen Amell, later famous as TV's Arrow, before his superhero fame. The sequel confirms the original's darkest implication. Hendrickson did not survive. The story reveals he ultimately sacrificed himself to stop the machine stowaway from reaching Earth and unleashing the Screamer plague on humanity. A heroic, doomed end for the lone survivor. The Hunting, shot years later, leaned heavily on practical effects and earned mixed but not unkind reviews, developing its own small following. It's a fittingly bleak coda. The man who escaped the killing planet didn't escape the killing at all. In Philip K. Dick's universe, there are no clean getaways, only the illusion of one. Number 3. The director graduated from Scanner's sequels. Screamers was directed by Christian Duguay, and his path to it is a piece of Canadian genre film history. Duguay had cut his teeth directing sequels to David Cronenberg's Scanners, the exploding head body horror franchise, before stepping up to Screamers. Critics who admired the film noted that it represented a real leap for him, particularly praising his handling of the atmospheric buildup and the journey across the ruined planet, earning him, as one reviewer put it, a pardon for his earlier work. Duguay went on to a substantial career in film and television, including the action film The Art of War. But Screamers remains a notable showcase of his ability to generate mood and tension on a limited budget. The film's genuine strength isn't its action, but its dread. The slow, paranoid crawl across a dead world where any figure on the horizon might be a machine. That's direction, not spectacle, and it's why the film lingers with those who give it a chance. Number 2. Its central fear predicted a real anxiety about AI screamers is built on an idea that has only grown more relevant. Machines that self-replicate, evolve without human control, and become indistinguishable from their creators. On Sirius 6B, the Screamers were designed as weapons, but they begin redesigning themselves, iterating into new and deadlier varieties, including models that perfectly mimic human beings, capable of infiltrating and destroying from within. The humans lose control of their own technology, which then out-evolves them. Written from a 1953 Philip K. Dick story filmed in 1995, that premise now reads as strikingly prescient. The fears at the heart of Screamers, autonomous weapons, self-improving machines, the inability to distinguish artificial from human, are precisely the anxieties dominating conversations about artificial intelligence today. Dick, as he so often did, saw it coming decades early, and Screamers translated his warning into a lean thriller. The film's monsters aren't just movie robots. They're a Cold War nightmare that turned out to describe a very modern fear. Number 1. The overlooked adaptation that got Philip K. Dick right step back, and Screamers occupies a unique and underappreciated place in science fiction cinema. It arrived quietly in 1995, was dismissed by critics, failed at the box office, and was overshadowed by the flashier Dick adaptations around it. And yet, over time, it has earned a reputation its release never granted. The film that captured Philip K. Dick's actual voice. His paranoia, his despair, his fascination with the blurred line between human and machine, more purely than almost any other. Its legacy is a quiet vindication. The killer robot premise it explored, the AI anxieties it dramatized, and the faithful bleakness it preserved have all aged into relevance. It proved a modest, thoughtful, practical effects genre film could outthink its budget, and that fidelity to a great author can matter more than spectacle. Screamers is the Philip K. Dick film that fans had to rediscover, and the one that, in the end, understood him best. Those were 14 facts most fans have never heard about Screamers. Which one got you? The bleaker original ending, or O'Bannon not knowing the film existed? Report in the comments if you're sure you're still human. If this earned it, hit like, subscribe, and send it to the friend who trusts machines a little too much. Until next time, check the teddy bear.